Alright, so we're back with another video from thctrust.org. It's your brother Sylvester Moore Ill, also known as Tex Masan. I really want to encourage you, if you can afford it and it ain't gonna hurt your pockets, join a monthly subscription for $32 per month and help support the research endeavor as we go deeper and we go places with this research. So this is a part of this series of videos where I'm talking about property acquisitions to the best of my research. This deals with what you want to know on the ground, or you or whoever your team is that's actually taking possession of the property. These are the codes you want to familiarize yourself with. These are the codes, laws, and statutes. So let me try to break this down. We start with Civil Code, or California Civil Code, section 1006. And what it says is this: occupancy for any period confers a title sufficient against all except the state and those who have title by prescription. So again, we're talking about the acquisition of vacant and or abandoned property, right? So when you take possession of that property, as we see here, occupancy for any period confers a title. Let's just stop and marinate on that right there. What does that mean? It means you are a title holder. Doesn't mean you hold the supreme title, but it means you are a title holder or interest holder. But for the purposes of you understanding what has really taken place, just know that you're a title holder. And I didn't say it. They said it in the California Civil Code. Occupancy for any period confers a title. And it's sufficient against all, right here, is sufficient against all except the state and those who have title by prescription. So you can look up what title by prescription is, and I would assume that the state, the state is going to be the sovereign in all of its statutes. So it's going to have superior title. But to me, what does that mean? That means if the state wants to see, the state still, the state has a constitutional, you have a Bill of Rights, which is an obligation, in your favor for the state. So even though the state is still maintaining that they have a sufficient title, as you'll see, you have a constitutional right, and I'm just going to jump in here to the part, to acquire, possess, and protect property. That's under California Constitution, Article 1, Section 1. Easy to remember. I think it's Article 1, Section 1. I know it's in Article 1, so go look it up, but it's in there. So, but the point that I was trying to make is that, so when you put yourself in this situation, you have it, occupancy confers a title. This is why they say possession is 9/10 of the law, and it's sufficient against all except the state. Now, if there's not a court order from the state ordering you to to be evicted or ejected some kind of way from the property, then you have sufficient title against all persons, as it says, or sufficient title against all. Now let's go down to, since we just went there, let's go ahead and read about where does this right come from. And this is not where your right comes from, but we are kind of dealing with process. What we're really looking at is for policy enforcers and things of the such. This right here is not for policy enforcement. The reason why I think this code is important, because this gives you the authority to record a deed or a title, right? To record your interest on the record, because this is proving that you are a title holder. It's just something to understand. The words are important. So, in the California Constitution, under Article 1, all people are by nature free and independent and have inalienable rights. Among these are enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining safety, happiness, and privacy. So the key part is acquiring, possessing, and protecting property. That's a constitutional right that means that right is supposed to be protected and enforced, because remember, all public officers swore an oath that happens to be ensured that they are going to support and defend your constitutional right. It's important to know how to tie these together, right? That'll be more in an administrative setting. So you can look at these here, and those are kind of like deal with your rights. This confers a title, occupancy, and possession, and this kind of confers the right. You have the right to acquire, possess, and protect property, and pursue, obtain safety. That pursue, obtain safety is correct because you may have to call the peace officer to the property that you did an acquisition on in order to remove somebody for trespassing. And that's part of your right to obtain safety, right? How can you do that? Again, because you are a title holder. Occupancy for any period confers a title, sufficient against all. So if it's not the state showing up with an order, you can have that person removed. They just have to leave when you tell them to move because you're in lawful possession. We'll see that later. So look, California Penal Code section 422.6. I gotta take a breather. I just been talking like nonstop here. So the California Penal Code, from my understanding, is something that's applicable to everyone. There's no qualified immunity that can exempt you out of the penal code. This is why this is important. I think all the penal codes are actual laws, actual real laws, because that's not the same for all the codes in California. For example, you got health and safety codes, all types of civil codes, code of civil procedures and things. But the penal codes is law and nobody escapes from it, from my understanding. This is how it was taught to me, and this is what seems to be so. So I really encourage you to go through the California Penal Code so that you can get more results when you're navigating. So no person, whether or not acting under color of law, shall by force or threat of force willfully injure, intimidate, interfere with, oppress, or threaten any other person in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him or her by the Constitution or the laws of this state, or by the Constitution or laws. So how does that work? You have a constitutional article right here, a right that says you have a right to acquire, possess, and protect property, and also obtaining safety and happiness and privacy, right? And then you have a penal code that says no person acting under color of law shall by force or threat of force interfere with, oppress, or threaten any other person in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him or her by the Constitution. So that right to acquire and possess a vacant or abandoned property falls under the right of possessing and protecting property, or acquiring, possessing, and protecting property. All right. Now you got a California Penal Code that backs that up. You got a California Civil Code that says occupancy for any period confers a title. That makes you a title holder, sufficient against all persons except the state. So if the state's not coming in with a court order, saying that you're not supposed to be there, you're the sufficient title holder. So king of the mountain, stand on top of the mountain, protect your title. California Penal Code section 146. This is the code that you really want to know if you're in that, especially if somebody calls the police on you. It might happen sometimes, and you're not there to be aggressive or adversarial with the police. You just have to know, Now, by the way, in this video, we're only dealing with the codes. Before this video, there's already paperwork that you'll have in your hand, to back up the fact that you are a title holder. You have documents in your hand. but you have to watch the video that came before this. So this says, Penal Code 146, every public officer or person pretending to be a public officer who under the pretense or color of any process or other legal authority does any of the following without regular process or other lawful authority is guilty of a misdemeanor. Arrests any person or detains that person against his or her will. So that could be considered a misdemeanor if they arrest or detain you against your will. This is why people are always saying, are you detaining me? Right? So if they seizes or levies upon any property or dispossesses anyone of any lands or tenements. So you have to know this. If you've taken possession of a property and you've occupied it for any amount of time that conferred a title and you're within your constitutional right, and someone and a peace officer acting under color of any process other than lawful authority. Now, lawful authority means he has to have some type of court order, right? Because the law is the Constitution, and it already said you had the right to acquire, protect, and possess property. So what we're looking at is, this is a misdemeanor right here. And you might want to be familiar with that. You don't want to be shooting that out there to cause any type of argument with the peace officer. You say, hey, look, you get the supervisor out to say, hey, look, straight up, I'll let you guys know, you're doing this without lawful authority under California Penal Code 146. That's a misdemeanor, and I'm not going to let this ride. So just think if this is really what you want to do. Because a claim of trespass can only be made by the owner or person in rightful possession. We're going to see that in a second. Right? Now look, the reason why I was focusing on the fact that you're a title holder is because this is not something that you have to tell anybody, but you have to know this for yourself. Because in your demonstration, whether, somewhere the question is going to be asked, who are you? And you are to know that you are the title holder or you're in lawful possession. Both of the two is fine, but you have to know this. Right? And this is why. California Penal Code Section 837. You already taken possession of the property. A private person may arrest another. Right? So for a public offense, such as trespassing, committed or attempted in his presence. So you could go read the whole thing. And there's some other requisites here, but I only want to stick to the ones that matter for what we're demonstrating here. So a private person may arrest another for a public offense committed or attempted in his presence. So if you tell somebody to leave the property and they refuse to leave and you're in rightful possession, you have a sufficient title, you ask them to leave again, they're trespassing, you can have them arrested. You can arrest them yourself. That's, I believe, what they call the citizen's arrest. I don't suggest you do that, right? Unless you have one or two people with you, and you don't have to physically put your hands on them or nothing. You just ask them for their ID, tell them they're under citizen's arrest or whatever. If they say no and they leave the property, that's what you want them to do. If they stick around, then you call the sheriff or some other peace officer, hopefully. Why? Here it is. Any peace officer who has the authority to receive or arrest a person charged with a criminal offense and willfully refuses to receive or arrest that person shall be punished by a fine not exceeding $10,000. So you have to be conscious and aware of this. And don't worry, arresting somebody for trespassing on the premise in this type of circumstance does not have to result in that person going to jail. You can have the person arrested and removed from the premise, right? That's pretty much what you want to do if it comes down to that. And that's going to, everything that you have to do or that you do like that is going to further establish your position as the rightful possessor or the owner of the property. Here we go right here. Look under California Penal Code Section 602. I know I couldn't have wrote this down right? Because it'll either be 1A or something, but you'll find that under California Penal Code, Section 602. Refusing or failing to leave the lands immediately upon being requested by the owner of the land, the owner's agent, or by the person in lawful possession. There you are. You're the person in lawful possession, right? So refusal to leave the lands, that's the commission of a trespass. That's a crime. And that's why I said if it comes that you can either do the citizen's arrest, lawfully arrest the person if they'll give you their information. If they won't give you their information, they won't leave, you could call a peace officer. And then you instruct the police officer, I've witnessed a crime. I'm the title holder. I'm in lawful possession of this land. I asked them to leave. They won't leave. They are trespassing. Here's my witness. You don't even need a witness, but if you have a witness or you have two witnesses, now you have a witness of everything. So now you're asking a peace officer to arrest the person and remove them from the premise. And they can do that. Any peace officer who has the authority to receive or arrest a person charged with a criminal offense. A trespass is a misdemeanor, it's a criminal offense, and willfully refuses to receive or arrest that person shall be punished by a fine not exceeding $10,000. So there you have it. And it all starts with possession or occupancy, because occupancy for any period confers a title sufficient against all except the state and those who have title by prescription. So what this really looks like is something like this. It's like a cell phone size. I made this actually because this is what we got to do sometimes, you know. So this is really a cell phone size image. So you got all these penal codes right here, and you pretty much have them like in a one cell phone size image, so you could just reference them if you're out into property acquisition.